Rightio. Hey. My name's Imogen. This is another YouTube video. I haven't made a YouTube video in a little while because I've been busy. I've had a busy month, okay? Don't hold it against me. But I'm making a YouTube video today, what I'm calling Intro to Litfic, or like Litfic 101. And it's basically my tips and tricks on how to get into literary fiction, how to you know, progress from stages. So I'm gonna show you three relatively easy literary fictions, which I would say are like the best ones to start with, and then what I would recommend that you read from there. So yeah, so the first thing I would say with getting into literary fiction is it can be quite difficult, but there are so many outstanding novels that like are worth the difficulty. Like obviously you don't have to read literary fiction if you don't want to. I personally really like it. Also, it makes me feel a little bit smart. I don't know if like that's bad, but it makes me, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm reading literary fiction. Anyway, so my number one tip would always be read something that is similar to what you already read. So try and keep it into genre styles. If you usually read romance, try and go for something that has romantic aspects. If you usually read fantasy, kind of go for like magical realism. And kind of take it from there. Litfic can kind of be daunting because a lot of the time there might not be any really point to the book that you're reading. The only point of it is just to read. A book that I would really recommend for beginners, which I just read yesterday and I knew it was perfect for this video. I knew I was already gonna make this video and I swapped one of my other books out for this one because it was just amazing. It was sad. It was short, and that is Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Now, this is actually the sequel. He has another one called Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which is, again, amazing, very short. They're written very accessibly, and when I say accessible, I mean that most people could read them. They're not convoluted, and they're so special, and this is magical realism. So this is really, really good for your first kind of short, easy, familiar literary fiction. It's amazing. Definitely anyone I would recommend reading this book. Even if you're not into literary fiction, I would recommend reading this book. And I loved it. I rated it a 5. Yeah, it was amazing. And so this provides a couple different stories of the same kind of world, and yeah, it's short, easy, not convoluted, and really a great literary fiction. Next is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I just forgot. Many people have read this. It's one of those book talk books. I would say with a book like this, again, writing style is not convoluted. There's romance, so if you're into romance, you might like this. It's really sad, and it's a really beautiful story, and it kind of makes you forget that you're reading literary fiction. And the way that I mean that is sometimes literary fiction can be really, like, it usually really acknowledges that it is literary fiction. It's usually very, oh my god, I just had the worst Vegemite burp. It's not something that's going to confuse you or make you want to stop reading. I personally really liked it. I know some people don't, but again, I rated it 5. Most of these are ones that I rated 5. So yeah, I really personally enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it. And then third book for getting into literary fiction, I would say 7 Days in June. 7 Days in June by Tilly Williams. Oh my god, this was just a spectacular book. I feel like I've said that already so many times. Yeah, it was amazing. It was so heartfelt. I laughed, I cried. This is another romance, but it's got more heavy elements, and it also has more characters. So I think this is a really, really good book. If you are kind of already into literary fiction and you're trying to like expand your horizons, this was just spectacular. I mean, it's Marisa's book club pick, and she always has really good picks. So yeah, I really recommend it. And yeah, so for those three, they are perfect for getting into literary fiction. I've got a short one and 2 mid-sized ones. These two are both like more romance novels, and this one's more magical realism. And they're all, I mean, accessible. They're written in like normal language. They're not written in a really convoluted like prose or anything like that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend. And then we're gonna move on to the ones that are a little bit harder. So this is the tier that I would call Litfic 102, and that is basically getting into a little bit more unhinged, a little bit more like meaningless. These 3 books specifically basically follow 20-something women who aren't really doing anything with their life, and the book doesn't necessarily follow a sequence of events, but it follows them. So they're character studies. They're less accessible. They're written kind of more convoluted, and more for someone who already knows that they like literary fiction and they're willing to kind of suffer through people being really insufferable. I quite like characters who are insufferable. And well, these two, for example, have no quotations. So Sally Rooney's very commonly doesn't use any quotation marks. But this book, A Very Nice Girl by Imogen Crimp, also doesn't use quotation marks, and it just uses the in paragraph text style. So that means like they recount the words and then they said, she said every single time, or he said, or Max said, or whatever. You don't really always know who's speaking. Which I don't really mind that. I quite like it actually. It's a stylistic choice. So yeah, these ones are a little bit harder and they're a little bit more meaningless, and they're like reading for the sake of reading and not necessarily reading for a journey, if that makes sense. You do go on a journey with the characters of these books, but you don't necessarily like it. So that would be Writers and Lovers by Lily King, Normal People by Sally Rooney, very common one, and A Very Nice Girl by Imogen Crimp. And then this is litfic 103, which is the unhinged category. So this is, you already know you like litfic, you already are super on board with reading pointless novels, and you can kind of get into things that are way more, I guess, freaky and more intense. So I have the two physical books of No Longer Human and My Year of Rest and Relaxation. No Longer Human is about this man, and it's 3 journals of this man's life, who basically, he doesn't believe he's a human, he's never fit in with society, he thinks he's like outside of society. It's kind of like similar to like American Psycho in the sense that like he thinks he's better than everyone, but he also doesn't really know what to do with that. It's a really crazy book. It really takes you on a journey. It's not accessible to, like, you have to really concentrate on the writing. The writing style is very unique, which are all good things. Obviously, I really enjoy that. And then My Year of Rest and Relaxation is, again, another pointless one, but way more unhinged. So much happens in this book. It's insane. And it just doesn't really have an end. Like, the ending, I personally loved the ending of this book. The ending of this book isn't necessarily the ending of the story, if that makes sense. So the litfic 103 category kind of leaves it up to the imagination. The other book that I would say for this is My Sister the Serial Killer. I've forgotten the author's name, but I'll put it here. I listened to the audiobook of this and I like want to go out and buy the book straight away because, oh my god, it was spectacular. It took me on such a journey. The audiobook narrator was amazing as well. And that follows a sister who finds out that her sister has killed a 3rd man, and basically that makes her now a serial killer. And it's kind of her dealing with the fact that she is helping her sister. She owes it to her sister to help. It's like her duty as an older sister. But so much happens, and it's, again, takes you on a journey. It's very unhinged, but it's good. I always struggle with how to describe these because I would say I'm happy to I've read it and I enjoyed reading it, but it wasn't like good, if that makes sense. Like, the writing was amazing and the plot was so interesting, but it wasn't like I was happy to be reading it, like, because sometimes some like crazy stuff happens. I personally think that once you get to like this kind of level, you can read anything in the litfic genre. Some other ones that are really good are any Kazuzo Ishiguro, so like Never Let Me Go, Clara and the Sun. Those ones, again, more accessible. They're probably like between 1 and 2. Any Elizabeth Gilbert is good. So yeah, and then you do get into like A Certain Hunger by Chelsea Summers. The ones that Night Bitch is, yeah, the really unhinged ones. This level is, you know, you've mastered litfic. You can graduate after this. Some honorable mentions in this and books that I personally recommend. Play It As It Lays by Joe Didion is just fantastic. I would definitely recommend this for people who like a little bit of the going off the deep end, maybe 103 level style of book. This is very interesting, and Joan Didion is amazing, obviously. Virginia Woolf is quite good. She has some really confusing books. She's a modernist, so a lot of her books can be rather pointless. So honorable mentions would be Joan Didion's Play It As It Lays. This is a really, really interesting book. Very good. This is the 102 to 103 level. And My Convenience Store Woman. I've forgotten the author's name again. Terrible, but I'll put it here. I listened to the audiobook of that, and that was just, again, fantastic, spectacular. It was really short, super confusing. I'm still a little bit confused about it, and it's one of those books that stays with you for so long after you've read it. That would be my intro to literary fiction. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. Comment anything you want me to talk about. I really enjoy making YouTube videos. I kind of like expanding on my thoughts. TikTok's such a fast-paced platform, and although I love TikTok and I love being able to just make easy breezy beautiful videos, I do enjoy making videos that kind of have a bit more substance. So anyway, yeah, it was super enjoyable to speak to you today, and I'll see you soon.